If you're a Canadian permanent resident and you think the border is the same as it was a few years ago, I need you to hear this clearly. The quick look at your PR card era is fading. The border is becoming more digital, more camera-driven, and far less forgiving about mismatched identity details. And if you travel often, especially as a senior or retiree visiting family, one small inconsistency can turn a simple trip into an hours-long delay. Today is February 4th, 2026, and in the next few minutes I'm going to show you what's really happening, what the government's own guidance actually says, and the exact steps you can take before your next trip so you don't get caught off guard. Let's start with the truth behind the headline, CBSA is watching you. People hear face scan and imagine something dramatic, but the real issue is simpler, and that's why it's more dangerous. It's not about one single moment where a machine decides your future. It's about how border processing is increasingly built around identity confirmation. Your documents, your photo ID, your travel pattern, and the way officers validate who you are. If your name, date of birth, or document status is messy, the system doesn't care about your explanation at the counter. It cares about what can be confirmed. Now here's what permanent residents need to understand, especially seniors. You enter Canada by right as a permanent resident, but you still have to prove who you are, and you still have to meet entry procedures. The Government of Canada guidance is blunt. Carry proper identification and be prepared for an officer to confirm your identity and status. If you are a permanent resident with a Nexus or Fast card, the guidance also warns you may be asked to present a passport and proof of permanent residence when you arrive at the border. That means the "I only carry one card" habit can become a real problem. So, what is the new face scan rule people are talking about in 2026? Here's the careful, fact-based way to explain it. Canada's official public pages don't say, every PR must do a new face scan starting January 2026. What they do show is a world where travel identity checks are stricter and where biometrics and photos are a core part of immigration processing in general. IRCC defines biometrics as fingerprints and photo, collected to confirm identity and assess applications. But importantly for PR holders, the IRCC biometrics page lists existing permanent residents among exemptions for giving biometrics in that application context. So if someone tells you all PRs must give new biometrics again, that is not what the IRCC page says. This is why you must separate social media panic from the official rule language. The most common way permanent residents, PRs, unintentionally create problems for themselves at the Canadian border is during routine re-entry after short trips abroad, especially family visits like going to see grandchildren in another country. Everything usually starts normally. You present your valid PR card, which is still within its 5-year validity period, and in most cases, the officer would simply scan it and let you through. But very often the trouble begins not with the PR card itself, but with the supporting identity documents, usually the passport. If the passport is already expired, even by 1 day, or if the name on the passport is spelled slightly differently from the name on the PR card, for example, because of a marriage, divorce, legal name change, or even a transliteration difference from another language, the officer cannot immediately confirm that the person standing in front of them is definitely the same individual named on the permanent resident document. At that moment, what should be a 30-second welcome home turns into secondary inspection. Secondary inspection is not necessarily because CBSA suspects you of fraud, crime, or immigration violation. In the vast majority of these cases, it is purely a procedural identity verification issue. The officer needs to be 100% certain that the PR card belongs to the person in front of them before allowing entry as a permanent resident. So they start asking for more proof. Previous passports, name change certificates, marriage certificates, citizenship documents from the original country, driver's licenses, or any other records that can connect all the different name versions or resolve the expired passport issue. If you don't have those documents with you, or if they are inconsistent, the questioning can become long and stressful. You can be held for hours, And in the worst cases, your re-entry can be delayed or even refused until you can satisfactorily prove your identity. This is the watching that actually burns people, not CBSA targeting someone personally, but a strict procedural requirement that catches people who never updated their passport after a legal name change, or who continued traveling on an expired passport thinking, the PR card is still valid, so it's fine. Keeping all identity documents consistent and current is one of the most important and most overlooked parts of protecting your PR status when you travel. If you are a Canadian permanent resident who has been living outside Canada and is now returning, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, IRCC, and the Canada Border Services Agency, CBSA, officially recognize several documents as proof of your permanent resident status. The most common and important one is a valid Canadian permanent resident, PR card. Other acceptable documents can include a permanent resident travel document, PRTD, or, in some rare cases, a record of landing with other supporting identity papers. In theory, showing a valid PR card at the border should be enough to prove both your identity and your right to enter Canada as a permanent resident. However, this is only half the story. The real-world process involves more steps and players than just the CBSA officer at the border booth. The real risk: airlines act as gatekeepers. The much bigger and more common problem happens before you even reach Canada. Airlines are not immigration officers. They are private companies with their own strict boarding policies. They are legally responsible for making sure they do not carry passengers who will be refused entry, because if CBSA refuses you, the airline must pay for your return flight and any detention costs. Because of this financial risk, many airlines apply very conservative and sometimes stricter rules than CBSA itself. A valid PR card is often not enough for them to let you board, especially if your card has expired, if you've been outside Canada for several years, or if you don't have additional documents they demand, like a PRTD, proof of ties, or even a valid passport that matches their system. This is why many seniors get stuck. They believe, I have my PR card, so I'm fine, and arrive at the airline check-in counter only to be denied boarding, sometimes thousands of kilometers away from Canada, even though they would likely have been admitted if they had somehow reached the border. The airline counter, not the border booth, is the #1 danger point for returning permanent residents. There is a very common misunderstanding among permanent residents, PRs, that once they have PR status, border officers or immigration officials can no longer ask them any serious questions or create problems at the border. This is actually a big myth. Having PR does not mean you are free from questioning. Officers still have the full right to ask you questions, check your documents, verify your story, request follow-up information, and even ask for extra supporting papers if anything seems unclear or inconsistent. PR status protects you from being refused entry just because you are a foreigner, but it does not stop the examination process. In reality, many PRs face long secondary inspections, delays, or even serious problems precisely because they assume, I'm PR, so everything will be automatic and easy. Most delays and issues at the border in 2026 are not happening because the person looks suspicious or wrong. They happen because the person looks unclear. Unclear travel history, gaps, frequent short trips, unexplained long absences, unclear documents, old proofs, mismatched dates, missing explanations, unclear current address, no proof of where you actually live in Canada, unclear purpose of travel, vague answers like visiting family without details, or unclear ties to Canada. All of these create doubt. When something is unclear, officers have to dig deeper, which causes delays, extra questions, and sometimes even requests for more evidence. That's why the smartest and most effective strategy right now is to make yourself as easy to process as possible. Carry clear, consistent, and up-to-date documents, know your travel history perfectly, give precise and logical answers, and show strong ties to Canada. When your case is crystal clear, processing becomes fast and usually hassle-free, even in secondary inspection. Here are the 3 mistakes that cause the most trouble for seniors and retirees. First, traveling with only one key document and assuming it's enough, especially if you're a Nexus or FAST member. The guidance is clear. You may be asked to show passport and proof of permanent residence. Second, letting your documents drift out of sync. Different names, old addresses, expired passport, or a PR card that's close to expiry. Third, trusting unofficial border hacks from random clips online instead of the government's published requirements. Now the solutions, the part you'll want to rewatch before your next trip. Step 1. Travel with a clean document set. Keep your PR card, valid passport, and any supporting ID neatly together. Step 2. If you use Nexus, still carry what the guidance says you may need: passport and proof of PR. Step 3. If anything about your identity changed, name change, marital status change, don't leave it as "I'll fix it later." Fix it before you travel, because the border is not the place to explain paperwork history. Step 4. Plan for questions. If you're a senior returning after a long stay abroad, be ready to calmly state where you live in Canada, how long you were away, and what you're bringing back. Make it easy. Now I want to address biometrics again, because your title uses face scan, and viewers will ask directly, do PR holders have to give biometrics again in 2026? Based on the IRCC biometrics page, existing permanent residents are listed among exemptions in that application context. So the better, honest message is, PRs are not suddenly being ordered to redo biometrics as a blanket rule on that page, but identity verification at travel is still tightening, and you should expect more consistent checks and less tolerance for inconsistency. That's how you keep your video credible and still powerful. Now let's make the ending strong and shareable. In 2026, the border is shifting from conversation-based to confirmation-based. The winners are not the loudest, not the most confident. It's the people who show up prepared, calm, and documented. If you're a retiree, your goal is simple: no surprises. And if you have parents, uncles, aunties, or older friends who travel back and forth, share this with them, because most border problems in 2026 will not come from bad intentions. They'll come from simple, avoidable document confusion. So remember, in 2026, the border isn't punishing the unprepared. It's quietly rewarding the ones who planned ahead. If this video just saved you or your family from a nightmare at the border, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that share button right now. Send it to your parents, your uncles, aunties, retired friends, or anyone dreaming of a peaceful life in Canada. One simple share could prevent months of stress, denials, or worse. And if you want more real, no BS breakdowns like this, updated weekly with the latest Carney policies, tax changes, and border tips, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Don't get caught off guard again. Drop a comment below. Are you planning to retire in Canada soon, or helping family cross? Let me know. I read everyone and reply to as many as I can. Thanks for watching till the end. Stay prepared, stay calm, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.